Welcome to this webinar, iPads and Students with Significant Disabilities. I'm Mary Bettlach, the web coordinator for mindfinitech.org and also an AT specialist. The question that we are often asked is, can my student or students use an iPad? And I have to admit that there is no cut and dry answer to that. My response typically is, that depends. So today we're going to address some of the things that have to be considered before answering that question. So we will talk about the considerations and processes that are needed prior to implementing an iPad in the classrooms of our students with the most significant challenges. We will explore built-in accessibility, as well as hardware for mounting and protecting, and accessories for access, including switch access. We will also highlight a few apps for instructional purposes and give reference to a wiki with resources. So when we talk about considerations, we need to put this into the context of your student who has a significant disability. Whether your students are physically impaired and or cognitively impaired, have autism, or you have a class that consists of all of these. We have to begin first by making some decisions, and we do this best by using what's called the SET framework, which is a decision-making framework. We begin first by evaluating the student. We think in terms of the PLEP, or the present level of educational performance. What are the strengths of our student? How is the disability affecting the performance in the educational curriculum? What things are challenging for this student? How does the student tell you what he or she knows? Then we identify things in the environment. Is it accessible in whatever means the student has for mobility? What are the levels of light, sound, distractions, content on the walls? What accommodations are part of your room or are already in place for this student? Next, we talk about tasks. What does this student need to do? What academic or communicative tasks will the student need to perform? Could these be done on an iPad? What are peers asked to do? Now we can talk about tools. Because in reality, the iPad may not be an appropriate tool. For instance, there is an app called the Attainment Switch, which turns the iPad into a wireless switch to use with switch software on a computer. Do I really want to spend $500 on an iPad to achieve a wireless approach to computer access? It's a good question. If I have a student who demonstrates explosive behaviors, do I want to see the iPad turn into a frisbee and go sailing across the room? So we really can't talk about tools until we give appropriate consideration to an identification of each facet of the SET framework. But wait, if we are thinking about the iPad as a tool for students with significant disabilities, what do we know? We know that the iPad is portable, it's lightweight, it's easy to transport or put into a backpack. We know that it is becoming mainstream technology. We know that there is a cool factor about having one and using one. We know there's a multi-touch screen, which can be a great advantage for our students who have significant disabilities and the difficulty with producing a point. We know it turns on quickly. We don't have to wait long for it to boot up. It's very easy to navigate, and in some cases it's considered to be quite intuitive to students. However, for some it may not be very easy to navigate for some students. But it may be a good alternative, that touch screen, if a student has difficulty using a mouse at a computer. We also know that we can bring the iPad to a student. We don't have to move that student to the iPad as we might with a desktop computer. We know that there are lots and lots of apps from which to choose, and more every day. We know that we can project the iPad screen for classroom viewing. We know that we can project individual iPads to a teacher's computer for private viewing by the teacher to check on what the student is actually watching or doing. We know that we can pass the iPad between students, that there is built-in accessibility features, an attractive price point, a nice long battery life, and built-in cameras. So now that we've explored a little bit about the tool itself, let's look into a few more features that are part of it. I mentioned before that there is built-in accessibility. So I'm going to go and show you, I'm going to highlight some of the features of some of the accessibility features within the iPad. And to do that, I'm actually going to show you the screen of my iPad. Okay, so we're looking at my screen now, my iPad screen. And the first place I want to go is to the settings. And I open up settings. I'll scroll down and find accessibility. So I'll tap on accessibility. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to show you is what's called VoiceOver. And VoiceOver provides a voice that will read aloud certain things on the screen. And it helps with navigation, especially for students who have visual impairments. So I'll turn VoiceOver on and go out of this.
Landscape. Home button to the right.
Okay.
VoiceOver on. Settings.
VoiceOver has just told us that the iPad is in the landscape position, the home button is on the right side, and read to us this item here that is highlighted called Settings. Okay, so I'm going to go out to the home screen and I'll be quiet because VoiceOver will be talking.
Messages.
So
Double tap to open.
So we see that Messages is highlighted, and I'll drag my finger across the screen, not even picking it up, and we'll be able to hear VoiceOver tell us what I'm touching.
Calendar. Friday, May 3rd. Contacts. Double tap to open. Notes. Double tap to open. Reminders. Double tap to open.
So we hear that we are told to double tap to open. It's a little different than what we're used to. Usually we just touch and things open. So because there are a few different commands that are used with VoiceOver, it's important to learn those. So let me show you what else VoiceOver will do by going into showing you how we could use it to read something.
iAnalyze folder. 16 apps. Opening iAnalyze folder. iBooks.
Okay, so I'm going to open the Gettysburg Address.
Gettysburg Address.
And I will drag my finger down along some of the text.
Page 4 of 6. 7 years ago, are brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created. Page 3 of 6. Equal.
Okay, so we see VoiceOver. We've heard VoiceOver and see that it has some application with reading text and identifying where we are on screens and what icons are present. we should also keep in mind that VoiceOver is utilized for apps that are switch accessible, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Let me go back to the home button.
iAnalyze. Opened. iAnalyze. Opened. iAnalyze. Opened. Assistive touch menu. VoiceOver off.
Okay, so VoiceOver's been turned off. I'll go back into settings, and we will talk a little bit about Zoom. Zoom is turned on, and they tell us here that if we double tap 3 fingers, we can zoom around the screen. So let's go back out to that home screen. So I'll double tap, and we see now how nice and large the icons become. So this is a way to view the icons on the screen by zooming in on them. Double tap again, and they return to their normal size. Large text is used in mail, in notes, the calendar, etc. So here is, we are set to 24 point. I'll open up the notes, and we can take a look at that. So here's notes, and we will see that's 24 point. Okay. Now if I go back into settings and back into accessibility and text, and I'll show you what it looks like if I expand that to 48 point. And you see that it jumps up to a really nice large font. So you have that option within the accessibility settings. Okay, what else is in there? If you come back out, we can invert colors, and I can't really show this on the screen. The iPad does not mirror this to my screen, but we could, by turning on invert colors, do a black, white text on a black background and make that kind of a change. Speak selection is something that is available. And I'm also, while I'm in here, I'm going to turn on Speak Auto Text and show you both of those. So back to notes, and what I can do is select. I'm going to select a word, select, and then there we go. I'm going to drag it out so it will read that whole amount there, and you see available now this item here that says speak right there. So if I tap that,
make Minnesota travel arrangements,
I can have text spoken. And the next item was speak the predictive word. So if I'm going to type in something like, oh, let's see, predictions, or predictable, we'll try that. Nope, it's not predicting that for us. Let's try adaptations.
Adaptation.
There we go, and it spoke the word for us. Might be useful. Okay, back to settings. Right down here are some settings for hearing, and here we can adjust the volume balance between left and right channels, and most useful for students who are listening to their iPad using their hearing aids. Let's talk about the guided access down here. This is kind of a neat tool that you see that little square here over on the right, and I have it turned on my iPad because my home button's been acting kind of funny, and so I can navigate easily with this guided access. So let me tap on it, and with this, oh, I'm sorry, this is not guided access, this is assistive touch. So the one right beneath that, we'll come back to guided access in a minute. So assistive touch lets me do things that may be a challenge to do. If I have a hard time double tapping that button, triple tapping it, the home button I'm referring to, I can do other things without having to go into settings merely by using this assistive touch. So I can touch this, it'll go back to the home button, or if I come back here to this one, I can go up into the device, and through this I can turn the volume up or down. I can lock that screen or even rotate it. So let's see if I try and rotate it, what happens. So you see I'm able to rotate it and go into different positions. Portrait, okay, and let's try and go back to landscape. Okay, so I can do that merely by touching this. I can go into more, and I can do a triple click, I can do a screenshot, I can do multitasking, which you saw me use earlier, where I bring up this bottom row of apps that I'm trying to get access to quickly. So that's assistive touch. Let's talk about guided access. So guided access is a way to keep kids from getting into things you don't want them in, if you want them really staying and working within one single app, for instance a communication app. So we can turn on guided access. Let me show you how that works. So I'm going to open up an app that is called Language Light. And it's just a simple app. So if I go into this part of it, there are things in here that I don't want my student into. I don't want that student into this information or the settings, connecting down here with the internet, other apps, buy now, any of those things. I don't want them to be able to get to. So with guided access, I can triple click because I've turned it on. And so now I can say guided access. And it tells me down here in the bottom that whether or not the hardware button is on or off. I always have it off. Whether or not touch is on. So you might have a student that you want just to watch a certain thing on the iPad. You might turn touch off so they can't touch and do anything else and get out of it. And motion. So what we're going to do is circle the areas on the screen that you want to disable. So I want to disable the Buy Now, the Connect, other apps, and these settings up here. So all the student then can do is what I want them to do within this app. And so then I come up here and I press the Start button. So once guided access is on, you see that I can go into listen, but by now if I try and tap on it or connect, you see they're all grayed out and I can't get to them. So then in order to turn that off, I triple click it. I have a passcode that I have put in, and I suggest that you use something that real simple, 1234 whatever, just so you remember it easily, but something that your kids can't get to. Okay? All right, so that's guided access. And I'm out of it. And then I press what I failed to do before, is press this end button up here. Okay. So it's ended, and now we can return to settings. Anything else in here in the accessibility that we need to talk about? I did mention before the triple click, and the triple click is the gives you quick access to things that are turned on. So guided access, voiceover, inverting color, zooming, and assistive touch. They all can be accessed quickly by using a triple click on your home button. And if you have a student who has trouble with double clicking that home button, you can adapt it here, slow it down so that the clicking process is a little bit slower. Okay, so those are the things in the accessibility options that I thought would be valuable to learn about. Now, let's see where else we're going to go with this. So the next thing to talk about is whether or not the iPad is the right tool. So we really want to talk about whether or not, how we might want to use it. Are we going to use it as a compensation? Is it going to take the place of something that the student has trouble doing but needs to do in the classroom? For instance, communication, using it in, that's a compensatory manner. Is it going to be instructional? Are you going to use it to enhance instructional tasks? So is it sort of, are you using flashcards because you want them to do sort of a practice of a lesson or an activity or a task? Or is it therapeutic? Is it something that a therapist, an OT, a speech path might sit with a group of kids and use in a therapeutic manner? Maybe it's something for articulation, or maybe it's something for vocabulary, language, or maybe fine motor. So those are the different ways that we might think about how the iPad might be used. Okay. So let's go on now and talk about a few other things. And protecting the iPad is critical. If you do make that determination that it's going to be used with your students, there are things you need to be aware of. And so one of the first things is something called restrictions. And restrictions are also available in our settings. So I'm going to go back out to settings. And here are restrictions. And you see that they're turned off. Now they also use a passcode, so it's important again to remember that passcode. So if I want to enable restrictions, I have to put a code in. You see I'm using all zeros. And now what I can do is turn things off. I don't want the students getting out onto the website, or I don't want them to use FaceTime, or maybe I don't want them installing or deleting apps. Those are important things. Keep in mind, if you disable these things, that those icons disappear from your screen. So don't panic and think, where'd my App Store icon go? Because it won't be showing because of this reason. You can also identify the default for music and podcasts is explicit, so you can say, I want that off. You can choose the age that apps are rated for. You can turn off in-app purchases, turn off photos, or turn off contacts. Any of those kinds of things are important. So that's where you do those, and then you do those again here in the restrictions. And once you're done, I'll go back out and show you how those icons will be gone. We go out to the home screen. No more do I have Safari on the bottom. I don't have my App Store. Things are missing. Okay, so if I want to turn those back on, I have to go back into restrictions, put my code in, and then I can fix everything back to the way I want it. Okay. Okay. So that's one way to protect the iPad. And then it's another way that we're going to now talk about is to talk about some sort of equipment that might be used. And what I'm going to do now is go to a wiki that I created with some important information. And the wiki is called iPads for Significant Disabilities.wikispaces.com. And the wiki has, on the left here, is your menu. And within this center page is the PowerPoint that I'm using for this webinar presentation. So you can download that PowerPoint if you want some of that information. On the left are our headings. So we have accessibility, all the things that I went through before. There are links here giving you more information about that and how you can set those things up and what they do. Okay? You can also, the next area that we want to talk about is called accessories. And the accessories section has some pretty valuable information in it. And we start with, I was talking about protection, so I'm going to skip over styli for now. And we're going to go down here and look at protective cases. There are a variety of cases that are really important. And I have actually seen this big grip case. I've actually seen a vendor toss iPads with this case on in a conference, and they claim that no damage is done to those iPads. So all of the items that are listed here will link out to the website. So you can click here and it'll link out to the website for Big Rips. The Go Now case is a bit new and is also available for the mini iPad. And then we have this one from AMDI. One thing to point out with this Go Now one is that it brings the sound more forward. It doesn't amplify it. It just directs it more forward. The AMDI one does have an amplified speaker within it, and it's once you get that screwed on, it's a bit of a challenge to get off. So make sure you're comfortable with leaving it on. The OtterBox Defender is a pretty substantial one, as is the Griffin Survivor. This grip case is kind of interesting. There are 4 holes here, so it gives you 4 different handles to hold on to. The gumdrop is seemingly a lot like the one above, the Griffin one. It looks like tire treads on it, so it's kind of rugged looking. This clumsy case was designed for children, and it has the same kind of material that you find in the Crocs shoes. The Sherpa is a nice case if you're looking for something that's a bit more professional looking. It has a nice strap to it. It's a leather case. As this other one here from R.J. Cooper also has a strap and allows a student to carry it and easily bring it up for communication purposes. Now, if we're talking about waterproofing, there are some items here that I want to show you. So we start with this disposable chef sleeves, and if you're using the iPads in a cooking environment, this might be nice to have. And you can see here that it has a bit of an adhesive strip that you can just slide the iPad in and then seal it on up. This other case, a little more pricey, the Life Proof, also is a waterproof one, as is this MoxieWear one. Both of those are designed to protect it from water environments. Okay, so those are the protective kinds of things. Now, let's talk about where we go next. Talk about mounting. So we've done some protecting. Now we're going to mount our iPad. And so on that same location on the wiki, we scroll down below the cases, scroll down below the waterproofing, we have mounts and stands. So the tabletop suction mount has these little suction holders and lets you, I believe you can rotate it in either portrait or landscape mode and secure it onto a tabletop. AbleNet has a couple of different mounts that they make. One is a very new one, and it's only 1.1 pounds, so it's very, very lightweight. And then they also make the latitude mounting system. You could mount on the wall if you decided that that was a reasonable practice for you. Lockline is the material, I think it comes from the plumbing industry actually, but Lockline has a mount that would work for if you weren't needing to permanently do any mounting. So if you're doing an evaluation, it's a real quick way to mount an iPad in front of somebody. The Daisy iPad holder and desktop mount are nice, substantial, easy to pick up and move, but yet provide some stability. Here's the Lockline wheelchair mount, and it's pretty much what you saw above, except now we are clamping it onto a wheelchair, and again, for assessment purposes. The Mountain Mover is kind of a new product on the market that has some really nice features for independent users. So this lever here allows the user to, when pushing down, rotate each of these joints. So it can very easily be moved out of the way. This pad here, this mounting pad, has the ability to vary in the angle that the iPad is positioned. So if you have any issues with glare or things, you can always adjust it that way. The mini arm from R.J. Cooper can be attached to a wheelchair or also a bed if you wanted to do that. I like this robo arm wheelchair mount in that it has an attachment that allows, like if you're in a tilt and space chair, it will rotate with that individual. The Stealth iPad mount is a swing away kind of mount. Of course, you wouldn't want to swing it away and then drive through a doorway. You want to be very careful about that, but it's designed to swing away easily. And then we have a couple of other ones that could be really valuable in the classroom. The rolling mount, wheelchair width, roll it up to an individual and then adjust it for height, or tablet or the floor stand, which comes from R.J. Cooper, that lets you work adjust it so if a student is on the floor, side lying, you could bring it down to a level that they can access it. And I include this AbleNet body mount. It's not for the iPad, but for iPods, because it could be real valuable for some folks that you might be working with. Okay, so those are a few things for mounts. Now I'm going to go on up and talk about other accessories and talk about some styli. And the first thing to point out is that there is a really nice review of styli here. And if you have trouble finding a good stylus for folks that you're working with, when you go to Walmart or you go to Best Buy, you can't quite seem to find anything valuable, take a look at this this article, because it'll give you some other resources for different types of styli. Okay, here's the Wacom, the bamboo stylus, Pogo Sketch, all different variety of things, and pros and cons of them. Okay, so Cosmonaut is a wide grip stylus. Place it next to a fat marker and you can kind of have a sense of the size. Chubby stylus is larger also, so depending upon, you know, little people's hands. There's a series of styli that come from, oh gosh, I think it's Belgium, but then they're shipped directly from the United States, so you don't pay for those shipping costs. But there's an individual there who is making these, and they're on Etsy. Yeah, Etsy. It doesn't sound right to me in my mind. I'm forgetting what that's actually called. The site where individuals can put their products out there. I think it's Etsy. So anyhow, this person has made a T-bar as well as a here's the T-bar, this is from somebody else, a T-bar with a strap on it. Here's a mouth stick one. Oops. Sorry about that. Mouth stick one, and here's one with a strap, and then one that has a bit of an angle. So those are all available by going to the website. So if I click on Flex Stylus, we'll get out to the Etsy. Sorry, not Etsy, Etsy. I couldn't quite remember it. And you can see the cost of those items. Okay, comes from the Netherlands. All right, go back. And then one more stylus to show you is a telescoping one, which could be great for somebody who needed it. It's not so cumbersome. Put it into a backpack pretty easily. Okay, so where are we now? Let's see. Mounting we talked about, access we talked about. So one of the things that we should probably talk about before we get into using a switch with the iPad is what are the kinds of requirements that are needed. And right now, apps are designed for switch access, whether that be a single switch, a step scan, an auditory scan. There are apps that are being designed with that in mind. Most of those require the use of VoiceOver, and that's how you utilize that app. Because if you recall with VoiceOver, it created a location and you scan through it. Most switch interfaces use a Bluetooth connection, but not all apps are designed to be switch accessible. That not all apps designed to be switch accessible work with all interfaces. So that's a bit of a dilemma, and I'm going to give you a resource that'll help with making decisions. And now coming, though, is something from Origin Instruments, and boy, they've been talking about this for a couple years now, and it's still not out there, but it's designed to work without the need for VoiceOver. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at some of those items. We'll start first with switch interfaces. So those are down. I'm still in accessories on this wiki. In the switch interfaces, there's quite a variety of them coming out. R.J. Cooper has one that will work with any app that's been programmed for switch access. So you can use it with 2 switches. He also has one that is useful for 2 switches, but it's wireless, and here's a link to a video that will show you a little bit about it. Here's one from AbleNet, which works with a variety of apps, and you can plug switches into it. These are also considered to be switches, so you can either use those or plug your own in, and there's a video for that. There is the switch applicator and switch to scan and Simply Works, and these are all from the same company. They're all kind of unique, and with the Simply Works one probably having the most application. It does use VoiceOver, but it also will allow you to use your switch with things like your some of your apps and music and media and iBooks and things like that. So this is a good video here from Jane Ferrall about this particular switch interface and how do you set it up. And then the Tekla is one that uses the VoiceOver. It's a pretty common one out there. People are starting to use that. But one of the complaints is you can't control volume with it, and then this blog link will give you some information about how to do that with a supplemental app. And then here's the Tornado. Here's a video on the Tornado switch interface, which I said is still in the works. I'll be anxious to see that get out there for us. Here are some links, some Pinterest links for, here's one for Styli, and here's one for accessories. If what I have posted doesn't give you enough options and you're still looking for something else. Okay, so now what I want to do is go into the Switch Accessible apps and show you what I have posted. And I really didn't pull out a lot of them because I didn't see any reason to recreate the wheel. This website link here is fabulous. So if we go there, I'll show you how it's designed, and she really keeps on top of it. So the top part includes apps that are just basically switch accessible apps. They're non-AAC ones, but what I really like about this website is that she tells you what the app is, what it's for, tells you a little bit about it, tells you the keystrokes, so what you need to know that for some of those interfaces, how you're going to program it. But what I really like is she'll tell you whether or not you can use 1 switch, 2 switch, 3 switches, auditory scanning, and then she identifies which of those switch interfaces you can use. So you find your app that you're interested in using, and then you figure out which of those switch interfaces will work. And generally it looks like the applicator works pretty well with most of them, the Bluetooth also. And then if we scroll down a little bit more, below those apps, she then starts with apps that are for AAC. So your communication apps are also listed on here with the same kind of approach. The app, what it's used for, a description, any kind of settings you need to set, and then which of the switch interfaces that you can use it with, and whether it's one or two switches and auditory scanning available. So fabulous resource, and as I said, she does keep up on it. Okay, so what else? We've looked at those AAC apps. And the other thing is, here's another link here, and this comes from R.J. Cooper, and he identifies what he calls switch-friendly apps. And then if you're using any kind of a switch in which you need to understand the programming of it, or switch interface that you need to understand the programming in, here is a resource for that, and it tells you exactly, just like Jane Farrell does, exactly what you need to program into your interface in order to make it work. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some apps for cause and effect, and I want to show you a couple of them. I've posted a few, and if you want some other ones, here's a nice link for other apps for cause and effect. And so I posted them with a link out directly to the iTunes preview store. And then a description of the app. But the ones I wanted to show you are at the very bottom, and there are two that I've recently picked up. One is called Hidden Grid, and so I'm going to show you my iPad once again. Oops, and let's make sure that Air Server is working. Okay, so this is called Hidden Grid. And I have two options. I can use multi-touch or a single point. So let's just look at the multi-touch. Now what this does is gives you this nice black background and some wonderful tones, nice colors, as long as I maintain contact. As soon as I lift up, it all goes away. And if I wait about 10 seconds, and go again, I most likely have a difference in what the tone is. So this is sounding a little bit more like, kind of like fireworks. And you saw that the shape changed as well, and the colors changed. So 10 seconds. Okay, that's Hidden Grid. Now the other one I wanted to show you is called Finger Paint. And it's kind of a similar one. Again, we're looking at cause and effect. And we have the option of having sound effects, music, or no music or sound. So let's just look at music. And we exit it by double tapping the top left corner. Okay, so if I touch one of those circles and stop, the music stops. And multi-touch is an option. I can touch with more than one finger. And this white one will get rid of everything. Okay, so that's another fun one. Just wanted to show you a couple of apps. Okay, back to the wiki. Now, Okay, so we looked at cause and effect. I do have some links on here for a couple of apps for data collection that you might find useful. One is Percentily and the other is Super Duper Data Tracker. And both of those are pretty much recommended by speech pathologists. Okay, Switch accessible apps we went over already. There are some apps on here for reading and writing. And I put these in just as a kind of general recommendations. So if you're familiar with Tar Heel Reader, sorry, I keep touching the iPad and it starts the music. Tar Heel Reader. You can also get to from your iPad, and here's a screencast telling you how to set up favorites. You could create talking PowerPoint books, and then once you've created your book, open it in Keynote on the iPad or in Cloud On. That's a free app that you could do that. Read2Go will read Daisy ebooks from Bookshare. Panther Reader has one called it's not yet available. They said it was supposed to be available in January, but there also should be some comprehension questions with that one. Spin Out Blue, Spin Out Red are both high interest stories for secondary students. The iHowTo book, I can show you that one. That's a free one. And it just gives some demonstrations of some very simple tasks.
Make sandwich, brush my teeth, wash my hands and keep things neat, tie my shoes and ride bike, and cook my breakfast like that. How do I do it? How do I do it? How is it done? How is it done?
Okay, give some instructions about getting through, and then we get to the bookshelf. And we can decide when we decide which one we want to look at. So we have things about vacuuming, we have things about brushing teeth. We can look at the brushing teeth one. These might work great as social stories for some of your kids. And we can turn off the background music, the birds chirping, and go to the next page.
Get a toothbrush and some toothpaste.
So we have the instructions being read to us. We can re-listen by tapping here.
Get a toothbrush and some toothpaste. Put the toothpaste on the toothbrush. Get a cup and pour some water. Wet the toothbrush. Brush your top teeth. Brush your bottom teeth. Rinse your mouth. Mouth. Your. Rinse.
So any of those words, if I touch them, I can hear them spoken again, or the whole sentence.
Rinse your mouth. Clean your toothbrush. Wipe the water off your face and hands. You are all done with brushing your teeth.
And you
How
can
to
go
brush
back
your
to the
teeth.
title. And you may decide that the steps that they provide are not the steps that you would use. You would use them differently. So it's just it's a free app and might be useful. Okay. All right. So we're looking at some reading apps. Booksy has books that are age level readers, and they give you 2 free books, which is kind of nice. Here's a link to Children's Storybook online. These browser books are great. You really need to use them with the Puffin app because they have they're made in Flash, and so the Puffin app is a browser app. So you open Puffin and then you can get to the links for those other books. Here's a link for Little Fingers. Again, go to the site from within Puffin. I Like Books has very simple stories in it. So animals, colors, dad, dogs. Let's just look at I Like Dogs. Oh, it's upside down. There we go. I can read, have it read to me, read by myself, or autoplay.
I like dogs. I see dogs in the park and on the sidewalk. Some dogs are tall and some are quite small. Some dogs are one color and some are covered with spots.
So you see some great pictures in narrated books. So additional resources then in the reading section, and the writing section likewise has some nice resources that you might find valuable. So I'll click on writing, we'll go through a couple of those. Story Kit, Story Wheel, Comic Touch. Let's look at Story Kit.
Some dogs are tall and some are quite small.
So Story Kit is a way to make your own book. Pretty simple to do. You start with new book, and you can bring in a picture. Go to your camera roll, bring in a picture, move around your picture or scale it, and then you can add text in. The Fly on the Wall. So we have the text in there, and we can narrate it, record. This is the story of a fly on the wall. Play it back. This is the story of a fly on the wall. Edit. Now we have a sound bubble there that it can be listened to. So add more pages. We can also draw within it, and details. Add a title in, author, read the book. This is the story of a fly on the wall. So you could use choice making with your kids and help them, give them some options and help them create their own little book. Pretty cool. Comic Touch Lite is a very similar one, except with that you're actually putting in speech bubbles. All the builder apps, Story Builder, Sentence Builder, Question Builder, they're pretty great for writing. So I'll bring up one of those. I have Story Builder.
Welcome back to Story Builder.
Different levels in Story Builder, and question reinforcement, color coding. So let's look at, we'll go down to play and we'll try one of them. So there's our question, where are the man and the dog? And I would respond, the man and the dog are, and then I would record. The man and the dog are on the ground in the snow. I could play the answer, I could go to the next question. So you see there's interactive questions that allow the student to really think about the story, and then all the sentences that they record get put together into a story. Coming for our physical needs, Panther Writer and Panther Connect are great apps for students who have the need to use the iPad, but in a more of a might need certain types of keyboards that are different than the standard one that the iPad has included with it. Okay, I think a few more things to show you within the wiki here. And so we looked at writing and reading, and now one other thing here in the news and on the web, if you're ever looking for ways to justify or maybe to show a review committee or a school board about how students have excelled with using the iPads, here are just some videos that I found on the web that give you some examples that you might find useful. And here's an article here for iPads using with students who are deaf-blind. So we're starting to see a lot more out there addressing the needs of our students who have significant disabilities. And so I hope that you share with me those things that you find that I can post to this wiki and keep it updated and continue to share this information with others. So thank you for your time and for listening, and I hope that you found some useful things here that you will take with you and or explore further with all the links. And if you wish to obtain credit for this webinar, please take the quiz that's associated with it. Thank you.